Hi folks, TheFilipinaPea here. And a lot of you have plans for your Filipino wife or girlfriend to travel outside the country. Maybe you live in the West and you want her to visit you. Or maybe you're unvaccinated, and since you can't enter the Philippines, you want to meet her in a third country. Or maybe you're already in the Philippines and you're married to her, and you just want to take a little vacation. Well, guess what? As with all things in the Philippines, it's just not that easy. As a Westerner, you might think that all it takes is a passport and you're good to go. In your world, you can sometimes just go online, buy tickets to wherever you like, and that's about it. But for a Filipino, the passport is only the first step in a long chain of hoops to jump through. And if you're not careful, you'll wind up waiting at the airport for a woman that was removed from her flight before it ever took off. It's called being offloaded, and it happens all the time here. So I'm going to go over all the things you need to do in order to get your Filipina across the border. Hi JR, welcome back to the show. Good morning.
Hi P, good morning. As gorgeous as you are, good to see you again.
Thank you so much. So JR, today we'll be talking about how to avoid getting offloaded. This is very applicable for you guys out there who have Filipino girlfriends, wives, partner, and fiancés. So JR, let's start with the term offloading. What is being offloaded?
Entails um a certain traveler not to be onboarded on the scheduled flight or plane itself. Basically, that's uploading.
Okay, so it's not necessarily that they're already in the plane, inside the
Mm-hmm.
plane, and then they're escorted outside.
It
Yeah.
may be
Oh,
that
it may be.
situation. Yeah,
Okay,
there are
but
cases though.
there are cases, but most of the time they're already stopped just prior to
Immigration counters.
immigration counters. Okay, so this is one of the reasons, and there are a lot of horror stories for especially Filipinos going out of the country, especially for single Filipinas, and this is their first time traveling internationally. So we're gonna go through the tips and tricks on how to avoid getting offloaded. Mind you guys, our immigration officers are there to make sure that all your documents are complete and to ensure your safety while you are abroad. So, JR, for a Filipino citizen, for a Filipina to go out of the country, what are the basic requirements?
Okay. Let's categorize this on this manner because I have also been receiving calls because there are a lot of foreigners right now, especially from the US, who wanted to come here but are still hesitant and they're planning to meet their fiancés outside of the country, like to name a few, Thailand, Singapore. And one of the major requirements that they need to get is a guidance and counseling certificate from issued by the CFO, which is the Commission on Filipinos and Overseas. So the commission itself is tasked to really give a counseling or an idea or information on what are the things that you should do and not to do based on the cultural differences among two countries. So it's counseling that needs to be done. It might be simple, but it may cost you not to be offloaded on your flight. That might be a very simple requirement, but mind you, it will have a very big impact on your plan.
Yeah, because CFO, this is applicable, especially if the Filipina has a foreign boyfriend, a foreign
True.
fiance, a foreign husband. So even if they're already married, um, they need to show this CFO certificate from or the GCP counseling something,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So anyway, we're gonna dig in, and we're gonna be discussing more about the CFO later on, guys, but that's one of the requirements. This is applicable, obviously, to my subscribers who have Filipina partners. So, JR, for the basics, what are the requirements for a Filipina to travel abroad?
For a Filipina, as what we have mentioned earlier, they need to have the CFO if that's the situation that we're talking about. They need to have the passport, of course. They need to have their flight itineraries, their bookings. Those are the major requirements, and they have also to set or established to the immigration officers. If they actually declare it on the fiancé side, they need to have some paperwork that they need to present, probably pictures, travel together. If they actually have been living together on that particular period before COVID, the contract of lease, which has stated both of their names, will be also be a good attachment to your documentation, because that is a proof of your filiation or a proof of your relationship as well, other than other documents that will be required upon your departure.
Right. So the passport and obviously visa if they
Applicable.
applicable if the country of destination would require a visa, like Europe, US, and stuff like that. But
Sure.
for Asian countries, we don't need a visa, but we need a day-to-day itinerary
Sure.
if I'm correct, because
Mhm.
the immigration officer would ask, "Oh, what are you going to do there?" So you have
Mhm.
to explain to the immigration officer, even though it's just like handwritten, you just know what you want to do there while you are
Mhm.
on a vacation or holiday, or also the confirmed hotel bookings, right?
Okay. Yes.
And a round trip ticket so that
True.
the immigration officer would know that you are coming back to the Philippines. And also, I heard from upon researching in the CFO website, they just want to make sure that the Filipina is protected
True.
with the human trafficking
Yes.
or violence against women. They don't
True.
want they don't want you to get abused. They want to let you know that they want to help you in case you're in that situation. And also there's this anti-mail order bride
Mhm.
law. So
True.
they just want to make sure that the relationship between the foreigner and the Filipina is genuine. So there's no such thing as offloading policy for the immigration officers, guys. I know there are a lot of horror stories and it's a lot of time, money wasted, but it is best to be prepared. So I'm gonna put the list of requirements later on in the description box. So let's talk about Filipinos who are employed. What are the other requirements that they can, like supporting documents that they can
Mhm.
bring with them?
They are requiring to have an OEC, that's an overseas employment certificate, that will also be applied prior to your departure. So basically, we have talked right now the other way of going, a Filipinos traveling, especially a Filipina. It depends really on your declaration. What is the purpose of your travel? What is the intention of your travel? Because the requirements will now vary.
Okay, so
Mhm.
it depends. All right, so let's focus on just being a tourist. Like they're
Mhm.
taking a holiday, like let's
Mhm.
say 2 weeks to a month.
Mhm.
Example to Singapore. So Singapore is we don't need a visa to go in
Mhm.
there, and the foreigner boyfriend is the one shouldering all the expenses. So
Mhm.
let's say the foreigner, I mean, the Filipina girlfriend is employed. What are the requirements that she can provide, even though the boyfriend is paying for the expenses? What other supporting documents can
Mhm.
she prepare?
One thing that we can actually advise to your viewers right now, especially the Filipinas meeting their foreign girlfriends outside, boyfriends outside the Philippines, is to make sure to clear up with your intention. Because if you're gonna mix up, the Bureau of Immigration or the immigration officers at the airport knows a lot of things because they're doing that every day. If you're gonna go there as tourists and you're gonna declare that you're employed, as what you mentioned on your situation, make sure you're prepared with your certificate of employment here in the Philippines, stating your total compensation package. That should be there. It's not enough that you're employed with this company, so on and so forth. And sometimes they're gonna ask you with a tax return. That's actually the tax return 2316. That's a summary of an income of an employee here in the Philippines. And those are, we're talking about your financial capacity going there. And sometimes also be prepared if you're declaring also that I have a side income, make sure that you'll have all the paperwork to support that. And sometimes prepare also for your bank account or statement, because they might probably check that also.
Right. This is just to ensure that aside from your foreign boyfriend that can financially support you, you have a reason to come back here in the Philippines
True.
because you are employed. So as you've mentioned, the certificate of employment certifying that you're employed in a certain company here in the Philippines. Also, I think you have to secure the certificate of leave of absence, meaning your company knows that you're leaving and then they're saying yes to that.
Yes.
And
Yes,
then
also.
some companies, I'm not sure, they also, aside from the leave of absence, they give you permit to travel from the companies. I think it's the same thing. And as you've mentioned, just prepare your bank certificate and your payslip. And sometimes your
Payslip.
company, your company ID. It's also it can help.
Yeah. The latest 3 months payslip at least, or 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, guys, I'm not saying that all of those are really required because sometimes the immigration officer wouldn't ask for it, but just to be prepared.
When you go to the counter, present everything. You have your passport, you have your declaration form, you have your documents with that, and it would give them an impression that, hey, this person's really traveling with proper documentation and proper intention.
Yeah, and if your boyfriend, your spouse, your fiance is supporting you, you can also bring the receipts of the remittances. That can also help.
That's a good point.
Yeah. All right. So let's say you're not employed, you're not self-employed, but you're a student. I know there are Filipinas that are still in school, finishing their degrees, or maybe they're taking up their master's degrees or something, doctorate, or anyone could be in school, but at least we're talking about 18 and above, not high school girls. So what are the things that they can present?
Establish first why is that particular Filipina going abroad to meet his foreign boyfriend. That's the first thing that they need to do, because the Bureau of Immigration will ask what is your source of income thereafter. So it's established already that the boyfriend is supporting that particular Filipina, and then probably he will be declaring that he's still in school. So probably a study load and an ID would suffice.
Oh, yeah. And also, I think they should ask for certificate of absence from the school. They have to ask permission that that the dean or anyone from the school, they know that you're traveling. So school ID, admission slip, or any enrollment certificate, or load slip, or
study load.
Yeah, study load. We call it load slip before. So, certificate
What year is that?
I'm not saying. I graduated a long time ago. Oh my God.
Likewise here. That's a wrong question.
Yes. It's like asking a woman her age, Char.
I'm just asking for the year. But anyway, we're moving forward in terms of, because I also, just to share, they're also like a friend of mine who is our client, a foreign client. Then they meet in Thailand, and the girl actually asked me for a certification that I know this particular tool with our company logo on it. Then I make a certification because these two are actually living together in one house and been transacting with us, and those things can probably support in a way. So the main gist of the video actually, as what we agreed before doing it, is really to guide your subscribers. And mind you, please stretch your patience, because sometimes they're gonna freak out. JR, why is it that it's like this and like that? So, but anyway, we're here to help you. The P and I will be helping you out.
Okay, so let's discuss further. CFO, this important document. So, JR, what is CFO?
CFO is a government office which stands for Commission on Filipinos and Overseas. So they are an office duly established by the Philippine government to make sure that all travels with this kind of purpose will be properly guided in terms of counseling, what to expect, what to do, and sometimes guide them also on what are the things that are not really pleasant to do.
Okay. So who needs CFO?
Those Filipino who are actually or Filipinas traveling with their foreign spouse. For those declaring that they have fiancés, and
Mhm.
also with a member of the foreign national. So those are as what they categorize on that particular matter.
All right. So, JR, what you're saying is that people who need CFO are those, especially Filipinas, who have foreign partners,
Mhm.
regardless if they're married or fiance, boyfriend, partner. And this is regardless, by the way, guys, even if the foreign spouse or the foreign partner is either inside or outside the country. Because there are cases, even though you're already married and then you're just taking a vacation and the Filipina is traveling with the husband, there are times that an immigration officer would ask for the CFO. Again, guys, this is always like a hit or miss.
Sure.
It is required for Filipinas to have this CFO or this counseling certificate because they are in relationship with a foreign national. It's not always the case. There are times that the immigration officer wouldn't ask for it, but just to be prepared, if you're in a relationship with a foreign national, just guys, please just get this certificate. There's no expiration. And plus, if in the future, in case you wanna migrate and you wanna your foreign husband, your foreign boyfriend would petition you, you're still gonna go through with this CFO thingy anyway. So at least you have that. Unlike Western passports, let's say a US passport, their passport is very strong. They can go anywhere they want. But us guys, Filipinos, we can't do that. We need visas. We need tons of paperwork to to convince the immigration officer that we're not going to just disappear. I wouldn't blame the immigration officer and our government because sometimes it's because of the abuse of some Filipinos. Sometimes they just go to a country which is a visa free country as a tourist, and then they don't come back. They look for employment there. You're going to be targeted for abuse because you're not properly documented.
Yeah.
So you have to go through the proper government agencies if you want to work abroad. But this is like the term TNT, tago ng tago, like we're always hiding because you're not properly documented. And do you want to do that? But anyway, this is only this video is applicable especially for those mixed couples who are in LDRs.
Yeah.
Even if they're here. So anyway, guys, if you cannot enter the Philippines, if you're unvaccinated or for some odd reason, for some reason that you cannot enter the Philippines and you just want to meet your Filipino girlfriend, let's say especially for the very first time, the CFO certificate will be
Very important.
very important. So aside from those documents, there are certain things that the foreign sponsor or the one paying for the trip, they need to provide certain documents. They need to send it to their Filipinas so that they can print it out. So in case the immigration officer would ask for those, then they can provide. Can you enumerate some of those, JR?
The the general requirements are as follows. So you have the affidavit of support, the invitation letter, of course, and the proof of income, and his ID and certificate of employment, and a proof of residency. So it's one way also of establishing that this particular person really resides on that particular area and has the credentials and the capacity also for you to support the Filipina going abroad.
Yeah. They can get that affidavit of support in their local government offices there. But let's say if the foreigner is already here in the Philippines, you can always go to any lawyers. They just have to do this affidavit of support. It
Yes.
should be notarized. And there are
Notarized.
times that you have to prepare also an invitation letter saying that you're inviting your girlfriend. I know this is kind of tedious, but this
It
is
is.
just a lot of, this is just the supporting documents. And obviously, if the guy is still working to prove that he can support the Filipina financially, the proof of income, like maybe bank statement,
Sure.
or payslip or something like that, and proof of residency. Anyway, a lot of you guys would be thinking, oh, why is the Philippine government so strict? It is because there are cases before reported that some of the Filipinos who traveled abroad, who got abused, or some of them ended up being a sex slave, and very unfortunate events. It's just an extra safety measure for our government to secure our safety, especially if this is your first time traveling, because most of the Filipinos here, we're not really worldly. We don't travel a lot. My tips for my fellow Filipinas: when you're talking to the immigration officer, you just have to be confident. You have to look in, eye to
Right
eye.
to the eye.
Yes, eye to eye, and explain why you're going, the name of the place where you're going, the phone number or the address, stuff like that, because they would check if you know what you're doing, or if you're being genuine and if you're being truthful, because they would test if you know where you're going and who's paying for the trip and everything. So you just have to be confident. Anyway, JR, what are the common reasons why passengers or Filipinas get offloaded?
Common reasons, inconsistencies of your paperwork. So if you're actually booking your flight is, for example, June 30, and you book your hotel up until July, that's a question mark already. Sometimes those things really matters. Inconsistency of your declaration versus your paperwork, and also the way you present yourself at the Bureau of Immigration. Lacking documents is basic. Those are the reasons, common reasons that a person is actually being offloaded.
To get the CFO, there is a website. Before, it takes time, but actually nowadays everything is computerized. All you have to do is register online. The counseling is through phone calls nowadays. Unlike before, I've heard that you have to spend the whole day or 4 hours to get the counseling, but nowadays it's easier. Just an FYI, there would be tons of documents that you have to submit depending on your the counselor. And sometimes you have to prepare the divorce decree if you've been previously married.
Sure.
And some of the questions are more personal. How do you know your boyfriend's family? If he's got kids, how old are they? Things like that. I know it's kind of invasive for you guys, but that's just like the test.
Yeah, but those are also the basic questions for the immigration during their spousal visa application. So those are basic questions that will trigger them to verify if you're really living together, you're really legitimate husband and wife.
So avoid getting offloaded. So, all right, for visa concerns, JR Coca is your guy. So JR, please tell my viewers, where can they find you and hassle you? Just kidding.
Yeah, for your subscribers already here in the Philippines, we are actually located in Cebu City, right across Ayala Mall Terraces. We have other offices outside of our main offices. We have our J Center, Moalboal, that is southern part of Cebu. We have also our Dumaguete office, our Bohol office, and we are currently touching down in our Manila team, and soon we'll be hopefully we'll be having an establishment office in Manila also.
Wow, JR is expanding. So, JR, once again, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much also for having us here in your channel, and we'll be looking forward to see you soon as well.
And as always, I'll be back in just 3 days in Thailand. So, see you then. Bye, folks. Bye, JR.
Bye. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
Just one last thing before you go. If you think about it, I'm kind of like your bartender, listening to your comments and questions, giving you advice when I can, and brewing up some intoxicating content for your enjoyment. The only thing I ask in return is a small tip in the form of a thumbs up on this video, subscribing to my channel, sharing this video with friends, and hitting the notification bell so you know when your next round has been poured. I promise, it'll only take 10 seconds to do, and your tip will make my day. You wouldn't want to shaft your bartender, would you? And for last call, why not enjoy some of my other videos too? See you real soon!